Okay, perfect. So today we have Brianna Merrill, or if you would like to call her Brie, perhaps. I don't know, you have to ask her permission for that, but we had a whole conversation about her name right before starting this. So she works for the Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development Corporation and does a number of different really exciting food systems related projects regionally. So she works all across the Hudson Valley. I originally had invited her because she coordinates Feed HV, which is a regional food rescue program that uses technology to link food donors of prepared but unserved food and fresh produce to nonprofit organizations with food assistance programs. Yes, I was reading my notes to the side, but does so much more than that as well. So she's really put together a great presentation for us today on both that project as well as so many other things that they do. So I will turn it over to her now to present.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Yeah, that was pretty much most of my introduction slide. I would add so part-time with HVADC and part-time I work on a farm in Kingston. I'm an Ulster County resident. I'm deeply invested in the work that you do, and I'm really grateful to be able to speak to you all. I feel that we have synergies of HVADC and the Eat Well program because of our shared goals to increase access to healthy food by changing or developing systems. So yeah, I'm going to talk a lot in the beginning about the different programs just to introduce the work that we do, and then I'll dive more into Feed HV, which I do think is the most relevant for everybody here's purposes. And I know some of you already work with the program, Shahara and Asha, and Suzanne obviously is a huge partner. Melinda, everybody's, we appreciate all your work, but for everybody else, I'll just introduce things. So this is the mission here of HVADC. So I think that, there are some challenges systematically that we all are trying to address, and HVADC takes an entrepreneurial approach to improving the resiliency in our food system. We also work on increasing access to capital and technical resources and applying technology to improve food access, which we will get to in a little bit. Just as a heads up, I do tend to go through things pretty quick. If anybody has a question, feel free to stop me. I'm happy to answer it, and if I don't have the answer, I'll connect you with someone who does. So who we serve. These are different types of agribusinesses that we are involved in. Additionally, the Feed HV program serves our nonprofit partners through transportation to help them focus on what they do best, which is feeding people. We also assist local businesses with their waste reduction initiatives. This is, not only climate smart, but it helps them reduce their hauling costs. And we generally try to serve the regional food system as a networker and a resource connector. We try to show up to meetings like this and try to see what's going on and how we can help things move more efficiently. So I'm really grateful for all the work that you all put in and to make the system work better. So it's important that everybody, here knows what we do so that you can share that information with other people. We have conversations often, and that's often how people find out about us is through word of mouth. So please remember our organization, and if you need anything related to agribusiness or someone you know does, please do reach out, and we'll connect you to some resources. This is a commitment that our board approved in 2020. And I think the key part that I want to point out is that there is a promise from our organization to listen and to do better. So if you have feedback, I want to encourage you all to always feel free to reach out to me, and I can share that feedback about how we can do better. So these are some integrated focus areas. So as mentioned in the previous slide, there's a lot of macro and micro environmental pressures for everybody, particularly people of color, underserved communities. Small business owners are facing a lot of challenges. Our nonprofits are. So these are just some ways in which we try to tackle those challenges. Yeah, I mean, even as a parent, it's difficult, sometimes to feed ourselves and our communities with nutrient-dense food. So how can we do this? Some of the particular ways I want to address are more of those last three, sustaining the markets, bolstering. Recently, we've received funding from the state as well as private individuals to purchase from local farms. Some of those grants are particularly for self-identified socially disadvantaged farmers. So that's been really awesome, and I hope that that funding continues to come in. That is something that I really enjoy doing, and it just has myriad impacts on the community, both increasing cash flow for farmers as well as improving the quality of food that nonprofits are able to serve through their programs. Another is to promote food insecurity by moving food that otherwise might be going to waste. And I think that this is one of the key reasons I was asked to speak to you all, and I will discuss it a little bit more. Diverting waste is it's kind of our bread and butter at Feed HV, though we have recently had these purchasing programs. About half of the 100,000 pounds that I imagine we will move before December this year would otherwise be wasted. We do have folks like the Poughkeepsie Farm Project that are growing specifically for agencies. So wouldn't necessarily say that's wasted food, but we've moved over 40,000 pounds of that for them this year too. Okay, so some programs. Let's get into the weeds a little bit. So Incubator Without Walls is a super cool program. Basically how that works is a farmer will hear about us and they'll come to HVAC, say, hey, look, I got this particular issue. Can you help me? They'll fill out an intake form, and then we will connect them with a technical assistance provider that can help them overcome or handle whatever, it could be legal. These are all examples here, strategic planning, marketing, whatever. So that's a 75-25 match. So typically, but like there is flexibility there. If someone really doesn't have the funds, please do send them to us anyway. But typically it starts as a 75-25 match where HVAC covers 75%, the business covers 25%, and then for any future engagements, it's 50-50. We are now also a CDFI. So CDFIs are mission-driven financial institutions that are dedicated to providing financial services and investing in local communities and the residents who live there by providing critically needed financing, which is often unavailable from mainstream institutions. And these are intended for markets that are low income or in underserved communities. So I pulled this CDFI public viewer. There's a website I can share with you all, and I just selected for a couple of the layers. And you can see Kingston, is all three of these criteria. So yeah, so you folks in your area are certainly qualified to receive this type of funding. So please do consider us. This is another loan fund through the New York Job Development Authority, which operates under the Empire State Development. So these are like low interest rate loans. And HVADC is one of 8 approved lenders, and we focus on this, the Mid-Hudson and Capital regions. So I'll kind of go through these quick, but please do ask me any questions. This is Hudson Valley Bounty, easy to sign up for. It sends out like a weekly email on Sundays, and it's just got a wealth of information, job opportunities, just events that are occurring, a bunch of stuff. So we do that. The Farm and Food Funding Accelerator is actually I've been with HVADC for 5 years now, 5 years this month, and this was one of my favorite things I got to do. There was like a cohort of farm and food businesses, and it started right before COVID. So we ended up not being able to meet in person, but it was just a really cool opportunity to see farm and food businesses start with a goal and work through with all these different technical assistance providers and come out the other end with business plans and pitch those plans to folks. So now we're here. Okay, so Feed HB. This is the real my main squeeze these days. So Feed HB is a web-based mobile application powered by ChowMatch. So that's an online app that this gentleman, Todd Hing, created for his wife, who also does food rescue. We purchased a license. Actually, I think Community Foundations purchases a license to cover a 7-county region. And basically, I'll show you basically what happens is once donors are in the system, if they have excess food, or like I said, a farm that, just wants to grow food for the people, they create a food run and they can designate who it goes to. Phillies Bridge would be a good example here. Every 2 weeks, delivering to the Institute for Family Health. And in New Paltz, then they can assign it to there, and then a runner would see that run available, and then they can pick it up. So that's the quick and dirty of it. The volunteers, if they utilize the app, this is pretty much what they're looking at. They'll get notifications of runs if they want to, either via email or text message. It's also a cool tool for, for recording statistics, for producing those annual reports. And yeah, so this is what it would look like. I honestly use the web. I use chowmatch.com, and it works just as good. This is a very cloudy image of the counties of New York, but I just wanted to show you where we work. These are 7 counties: Orange, Putnam, Ulster, Dutchess, Sullivan, Columbia, and Greene. We have worked with farms and food rescue programs in other counties. If we get word, that there's a bunch of food near Albany, we might reach out to the Capitol Roots. If there's something going on in Rockland, we might reach out to Touch. So we, and we've worked with farms in Schoharie and elsewhere, but that's our main region where we have the license for, is those 7 counties for the Feed HB program. This here is a map of our recipients and donors in Ulster County. So green is the donors who are registered, and red are the recipients. So you might even see yourself on there. I did zoom in here for Kingston too. So there's obviously room for growth, but we are already operating in your area, and we're excited to expand. Oh, this one's got some, okay. So this is just some other ways that we can support the local food system besides moving food. We've done processing events. So during COVID, we had some money, and there was abundance of like eggplant and tomatoes. And we ended up working with Gateway, the OFA in Kingston, we got some volunteers together, and we processed, I think it was like 300 or 400 pounds of food that was then delivered to a couple Kingston agencies. So that's something that we hope to continue to do and have done in the past. Gleaning, we would obviously rely heavily on Ulster Corps for in your area for that. We did also recently, you guys talked about the Ulster Fair. We, quote unquote, gleaned from the Ulster Fair this year for the first time. Suzanne was super critical in those logistics. I can't thank her enough. But yeah, so basically what happened is we would go on a Wednesday. My battery's gonna die. 1 second. I don't want it to die. So we went on Wednesday. We just let people know that we were going to be rescuing on Sunday, and then they donated. Ulster was just amazing. It was like almost donated as much as Dutchess, and it was much smaller of a fair. And then the purchasing, which I mentioned, is something else that we are able to do. We're able to purchase some meat and get over to People's Place recently, and we hope to continue to have those funds available. So these are some folks that on the left is folks that support HVADC's programs in general, and then the right is really the Feed HV network folks that we just could not operate without. So definitely wanted to give them a shout out. And these are folks that are collaborative partners that we also connect. And there's many more than this, but these are who was in the slides. And yeah, I do want to give a shout out to them. And this is my contact info, as well as our general like our headquarters and the number to reach the main office. So yeah, that is a lot about HVADC and the Feed HV program. And I would love to answer any questions that you have. You know, I threw a lot of information at you, but it's a lot of good stuff. And I do hope that it helps you or somebody that you know sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions, but I will pause in case there are any other questions from other folks.
Oh, can I had it in my notes. Can I say something else? Because I did want to just give you guys some stats. So currently we have in the whole 7-county region, 150 donors, 120 over 150 donors, 120 HSCs, and 350 volunteers registered. Specifically in Kingston, this year we've had 9 unique donors and 17 unique recipients. So, this is not this year. So in general, we have 9 unique donors, 17 unique recipients, and this year specifically 3,230 pounds was delivered from 2 donors to 8 unique Kingston recipients. So I think some of those other donors were coming from other places and then going to Kingston. But so basically 2 active donors and 8 unique recipients as of this year.
Cool, thank you. I guess, my question has to do kind of with that whole process. So say someone is interested in becoming a donor, if they're, they want to become a donor, what are the rules or qualifications or boundaries for the food that is donated? Like, what does that look like for the food?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess to take a step back, I would just want to mention that to sign up is super easy. It takes like 5 minutes as a donor, or maybe a little bit longer as a recipient, because you have to put in details like how much of each different category you can accept, because we wouldn't want to give you more food than you have storage capacity for or the ability to move. So, and then on our website, we do have details about like all the parameters around what can be donated. But it's most anything, if you would eat it yourself, you can donate it. We don't take things that are expired or they have to be handled. But we pretty much take everything. We'll move everything. So. And to be a volunteer also doesn't take that long. There is a quiz. Maybe it's like more like 10 or 15 minutes, because there's a quiz for a food safety quiz.
Oh, that seems reasonable. Food safety is important, especially in food rescue.
Yeah, and with the donations, like we'll move for as little as 5 pounds. So we'll take, like, we might not think it's a lot, but I think I know that it does add up, and we have volunteers that are, local, so they're willing to move to rescue it. So
I had a question. Of course, my lens is always through schools, and I know schools have a lot of hesitancies about food safety and like their liability. And I'm sure this is all explained on your website, but I'm just curious, like in general, how do you kind of alleviate those fears to encourage any donation of excess food?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Schools are one of our greatest partners, particularly Kingston City School District. We move like hundreds of pounds from them. There are now two laws that protect all donors. One is the the older law is the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act. And then just in, I think it was January of 21, there was another bipartisan bill that was passed and that, Biden signed, and that doubly protects everyone from any liability, as well as kind of increases the legislative clarity around it. That information is all on the website, and it's kind of like one of the things that I put on the back of the donor flyer, like it's a little half sheet just so that they can see the legal basis. But there's actually like never been a case in recorded where someone has sued somebody about food safety, like a donation. It's just a, a thing that people worry about. But as far as all of us food rescue people can tell, it's not an actual thing that has ever even happened. But yeah, really grateful for the school districts, because we are able to get a lot of milk and produce at the end of right before school breaks to local agencies.
Oh, thanks. I have another question, but does anyone else have a question?
I have a question, actually. So you had shared that you work on business plans with farms and you also provide support for value-added products, but mostly you talked about working with the processing events. What's your role in assisting businesses with value-added products?
So that would be, so I if this doesn't answer your question, let me know. But basically, the technical assistance for value-added businesses would be someone. Okay, so for example, we worked with somebody up in, it was Albany County, and they were making a bunch of sauces, but they wanted help with their marketing plan. They wanted to be able to expand their business. So they worked with us over the series of a couple months, and it wasn't really us. It was like so we're a small nonprofit with like 6 employees right now. And then we have like a black book of technical assistance providers. Some of them are marketing professionals. So we connect them to those marketing professionals, and then they hash out a plan and then implement it. So HVDC is kind of providing a container for the connection between farm and food businesses. It's not just farms, it is food businesses to receive technical assistance, whatever that may be, whatever it is that they're needing to take their business to the next level. Does that answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
Oh, great.
Okay, I'm going to ask my question. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the gleaning from the Ulster County Fair. So I saw that was happening this year, and to give a little bit of a setting, a framework in my mind is thinking, at the City of Kingston, people come and get permits for events from us. We also have our own Earth Fair that we host each year. And so just wondering, kind of how that went with the county fair, what you gleaned, maybe some lessons learned, thinking in the future, it could be something that we make those connections. If people are already getting permits from the city, it could be like a flyer, the information, on how to work with you to do gleaning as well for that. So I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the process and what types of food you glean.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that's a great way to get the word out. I find fairs to be a little intense because they often require a late Sunday time commitment. Luckily, Suzanne was willing to meet us at the cooler so we could store it overnight and then distribute it again, on the next Monday. But that overnight storage, because no agencies are going to be open to receive on a Sunday, that's like kind of the most difficult aspect of it. But luckily, yeah, we have amazing partners and we're able to figure that out. We do the same in Dutchess with the Red Hook Response Cooler. We got a lot of prepared foods. There was also, 100 pounds of potatoes from JNS concessions. There was, I think it was 60 or 80 pounds of bananas from Armstrong, like Island Time smoothies. So there was some produce like that. But like Yasso, I think it was Yasso Nice. They had just like huge mac and cheese trays that they donated, unopened, untouched. So and like that's like the kind of thing we can move, is something that hasn't been, but we're really generous in their donations of, unserved prepared foods. And yeah, I'm trying to think of, I have a list that I can send you, but the big ones that stick out to me are the potatoes, the bananas, and prepared foods. I mean,
That's
maybe,
amazing.
the chicken, the frozen chicken, Suzanne, that was like that was a whole thing. That was 100 pounds of frozen chicken, which Darmstadt was able to receive the next day and cook up. So that was a big donation too. That was from Corner Barbecue.
That's
Sorry.
amazing. Oh, sorry,
Go ahead,
I just
Vanessa, sorry.
imagined like hundreds of pounds of fried dough being donated. That's like the only thing that came to mind. So that's really nice to hear all those different foods.
Right, and no fried dough. The guy was like, "Oh yeah, I always have fried dough," and then we went, and he's like, "I'm sold out." We didn't get any fried dough, actually. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I think that's just the other piece too when looking at fairs and events, like making sure that the items are things, granted, we do have a few like residence programs or a few soup kitchens in Ulster County that can take food that like is ready to be prepared, but it does, it does sort of depend on what the items are. You can't take open things, these vendors might have like cheese in bulk, for instance, like a giant block of cheese, and if that's been opened, like it can't go to a food pantry. It shouldn't go to a soup kitchen. So it's like, it is kind of particular in the items, but yeah, it's like a ton of frozen chicken and bananas like that there are plenty of outlets for things like that.
Right, and there was bread. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's to replicate it to other events is definitely possible. And I think honestly, part of what makes the fair rescues successful is that folks are being very generous. Like, I don't know that chicken needed to go, I don't, like, it was being kept at like 34 degrees. Like probably didn't have to give that to us. I mean, it's more of like, I don't know if it's like really waste so much as people being very generous in Ulster County in particular. But yeah, if it's an event and things have to be kept at temperature, there's challenges, but it's definitely possible. And I would love to see an expansion of our work with catering folks, because I do imagine a lot of food is being wasted. That's really delicious.
Yeah, I mean, I will share, just in having conversations about the food system plan, it's just a big topic that comes up, is the food waste that happens, particularly in events or at restaurants. Anytime there's food being served or prepared, people just have concerns, I guess, about the food waste. That's a point of interest for them. And so my mind immediately goes to like, how can I create a phased out process that supports this so that we can have sort of like zero waste events? I mean, the Earth Fair, I think, is slowly inching its way towards reducing the waste. We're not quite a zero waste event at this point. But that is always something that folks are interested in. So we can do it in a phased approach as well. So it could be optional, where we give information just connecting y'all. It could also include education in the future, that if people would like to participate in this, because I find that food people are often really interested in not having food waste. This is what they should do to prepare before the event to ensure that the food that they have is eligible to be donated. So yeah, just thinking through, I'm like, oh wow, like we could approach all of this, and it's not going to be perfect the first time we do it, but we can get there eventually. So that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And just to take it one step further, like obviously we prioritize moving food for people. But then like there is the hierarchy of food waste. It can be moved for animals. It can be composted, and there's some folks in Ulster County that do that pretty well. Like the folks that are at the Garlic Festival. So if you are trying to get some advice, I find them to be very approachable. And if you have any questions, maybe I can't remember their names right now, but yeah, maybe that also would be a good resource for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's an opportunity for me to plug Kingston Organic. So we do have a composting program in Kingston that I know Brendan in particular, he spends half of his time working with our department and half of his time working with Julie Noble on some sustainability projects. And so one of his projects is working with her on like the next phase of Kingston Organics. So that kind of aligns with work that's being happening. I love this like synergy. Also, synergy is such a buzzword, but it feels appropriate here to say that. Any other questions or comments before I stop recording? I recorded this part because it felt like the questions were really rich and we were getting a lot of good additional information.
Yeah, thanks for asking those questions. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about how the Feed HV signups actually work and what we can take and the protections. Those are all really important. So I'll update my slides now. Thanks.
I just want to make one quick comment. Brianna has been really super helpful in just sort of talking out like systemic emergency feeding issues that pantries can run into. One of the big ones that we talk about often is transportation for food pantries, because, you know, HVADC does have this program where they can sign up volunteers to literally do runs. You know, we say donors and we just sort of look at them as donors, but it really can be like signing up a volunteer to go do a weekly pickup at a grocery store for a food pantry because the food pantry maybe doesn't have the staff or the volunteers to do it themselves. So I I don't want to increase Brianna's call list unnecessarily, but I do think that she's a really great mind for thinking about some of these larger systemic issues and maybe what can be done outside of what any of our programs already do. And she's pretty knowledgeable about, you know, possible funding that could be out there or talking to folks or connecting people. And I would, I rely on her as that resource. I also rely on Kristen Kessler for that resource. But I would encourage other folks to, you know, consider Brianna as someone who like definitely understands these systems really intricately and can really help sort of talk out some of these things.
Oh, Suzanne, thank you so much. And yeah, my supervisors know a lot more than I do too about macro stuff going on. So if I can't answer, I will connect you to someone who can, or like someone who will be better to brainstorm. I think I know my limits and like I'll do my best with what I got, but I'll try to get you to someone who can even do better if I, you know. So yes, please do think about HVADC when it comes to these stuff. We're like the only agricultural focused economic development agency in the region. So yeah, thank you, Suzanne. I'm gonna keep playing that over while I'm in bed sleeping and be like, yeah. Thanks,
Cool.
guys.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, then I'm gonna hit stop recording.